Hey everyone, welcome back to the Castaway Consultants, where we teach future Survivor players how to play the game by criticizing past players. I'm one of your hosts.
One of the two hosts.
One of the two hosts.
For today.
Only two hosts. Ryan Stacy, I'm your resident Survivor superfan who knows everything there is to know about Survivor. And boy, oh boy, that got challenged tonight.
Yeah, I'm Derek Kupacek. I'm your other host. Our third host, Josh, otherwise known as Deadweight, otherwise known as Trimmed the Fat for the evening, is at a concert for some guy named Reginald Kenneth Dwight. So, I guess if he wants to go to that concert rather than, hang out with us and watch Survivor, an iconic episode, or at least an iconic tribal of Survivor, I guess that's on him. Reginald Kenneth Dwight. I hope it was worth it.
Yeah, Josh is certainly missing out tonight. So, Josh, when you're listening to this, get wrecked. Was it worth it?
But it'll just be me and Ryan.
Yep.
So, we'll be able to trim off all 5 minutes that Josh usually... No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
So we just watched episode 3 of Survivor 42, which is called Go for the Gusto. Wow. This episode really kicked this season in a high gear, I think.
I agree. And a lot of it was not the twists. It was just the circumstances.
Yep.
I guess, there were a couple mechanics that came into play and a couple of choices that came back to have to rear their ugly faces. And it was a treat as a viewer, but I can imagine if you are on a certain tribe, you are kicking yourself over and over again right now.
There was a lot of bad decisions tonight, some epically bad decisions. And what's funny is none of those players who made the epically bad decisions are out of the game. It cost somebody who was completely innocent.
For the first time, I think it's actually going to be significantly harder to decide on a worst player of the episode.
Yeah, because of options.
Yeah, we have too many options. We're not splitting. Well, we're splitting hairs, but we're splitting two very long hairs.
Bad hairs. A lot of the time, we often make the caveat that for worst player of the episode, we can't give it to the person who was voted out. We don't even need that one in here tonight because, spoiler alert, the person who was voted out was not the worst player of the episode.
Absolutely not.
Don't even need it tonight. Yeah, this was a crazy episode. If you haven't watched it yet, go check this one out. This was the best episode of the season so far.
And I think most of the discussion that we have this episode will be more meaningful for you if you do go and watch it yourself. Think about what happens. Come into this podcast with an opinion.
Yep.
And if you disagree with one of us or both of us on something, if we come to a two-person consensus and we don't have Josh's feedback to come in and really break the tie, let us know because this is so fascinating.
Yeah.
And lots of bad gameplay, but gameplay. Certainly gameplay. The game is afoot.
The game is afoot. Before we jump to the episode, Derek, you wanted to read something off Twitter real quick? Or an update on a running story with a certain love letter?
I just thought this was fascinating. So, as some people may know or may not know, this is just general Survivor news, not even related to tonight. Russell Hands is selling everything Survivor related. He put out a couple of YouTube videos saying he knows why he lost Heroes versus Villains. I watched that. It seems like he's halfway there, but he's not quite all the way. But to his credit, he said, if you want to see my legacy, you can turn on the TV. I don't need to keep this stuff. So he's selling the JT love letter that was written to him in Heroes versus Villains, wherein JT gave him the idol. And this time last week, when it was first put up there, it was for $10,000, $11,000, and there is 3 minutes and counting left in this bid, and it is currently at $25,200. So I just thought that was exciting, and you're not going to see Survivor memorabilia moving like this, and especially not memorabilia of this gravitas, this importance. So I just thought that was really cool, and we should all take a moment to acknowledge it. So go and check it out and see how much it goes for. Maybe we'll report on it next week. Maybe we'll report it on in the end of this episode.
Maybe we'll buy it in the next 3 minutes.
If I had $25,201 from Survivor winnings to buy this letter, I would absolutely do it just to flex it. I'd hang it on my wall and put it in a shadow box and say, you see that? Paid way too much money for it. This is where I wish I was a Bitcoin millionaire.
See if Russell will accept payment in gum. I'll buy him a stick of gum.
Has anybody ever paid you in gum, Russell?
All right, let's jump into this episode, huh?
Absolutely.
So the episode begins on the Taku tribe. Immediately, Marianne, she tells Taku she has the extra vote. She got it. And we're not done. The hits keep on coming from Marianne. The whole tribe is going to go on an idol hunt together and to use it as a tribe. Marianne's the one who finds it. It's the Beware advantage, of course. She takes it. loses her vote and tells everyone. So everyone, we could see Marianne's cards. She's just showing them to us.
Yeah, I feel like if this is a game of Texas Hold'em, she just went all in with like a 210 offsuit, and everyone's like, okay, that's very interesting. And then she turned her cards up.
Yep.
If you lose your vote and you're on a strong tribe of 4, I mean, do they keep you around because they know you have no vote? I haven't decided if this works for her or against her, specifically with the Beware advantage. I have no idea why she decided to tell them she has an extra vote, because do you want to know what that does for you right now? In a 2-2 split, Marianne, that saves you. If you can get one other person, maybe Lindsay, so that she's not number 3 on a tribe of Lindsay, Omar, and Jonathan, you can use that to gain numbers. But no, we're just going to tell everyone. That's not a smart plan.
Don't tell people stuff. We learned this in 41. These players didn't see that, but you, the listeners, know this now.
And we also have 40 seasons of proof as to why you shouldn't tell people that you have advantages or idols, except in very specific circumstances.
And earlier in the series, it was less bad, even sometimes good. But we're beyond that now.
Yeah,
that is from a bygone era. That's an ancient relic of a strategy. So don't do it. Let's go over to Vati, where we're not going to leave Vati ever again.
Yeah, the rest of the episode's going to be here.
We do not go to Ika Beach once. Not once in this episode. They have no role to play besides the immunity challenge.
I don't even think we get any confessionals from them.
Nope.
They just exist.
They appear at the immunity challenge, and that is it. So Vati, Daniel is scatterbrained, and apparently he loses and misplaces everything, like his shoes, his water bottle, just all the time. And I just thought that was a funny character moment. Just like, oh, that's kind of funny. Boy.
Oh no, this was Edgic, and it was all going to be contained within this episode, and it was going to have a conclusion.
How many Vati players does it take to lose an idol?
I mean,
more than 2. Daniel wants to read the notes, the fine print. He's a lawyer. He wants to read the fine print of Mike's Beware advantage. Mike lets him read it. And we learn at the merge, the vote penalty part of it is gone, and it just becomes a regular idol, which is a change from last season. I believe the idols just remain dead at the merge if the phrases weren't said, but you did get your vote back. It was just the idols were done. I like this better because it's less of a penalty. The Beware advantage I thought was really harsh, and so I'm fine with this.
I also like it because there's now reason to not say the phrases at the challenge. If you think that you're set up really well in the pre-merge, or you think you won't lose a challenge, or that your vote's not important, you can keep it a secret and have yourself a nice shiny idol come post-merge. I think that's very difficult. It's very risky, but it gives the player an option. It's not just about getting all of the information out there, which is one of the things that we did criticize 41 for so harshly, and,
yes.
and deservedly so. So this is a step in the right direction if this is a mechanic that we're going to be carrying into future seasons.
Yes, which is something I don't mind either way. But Beware advantages I think are funny. I don't care if they're in either way. It's fine. It's whatever. So Mike gives Daniel the idol and the notes and everything. Daniel returns the note that he read to Mike, and Mike's like, "Well, where's the idol?" And Daniel says, "You never gave me the idol." Mike's like, "I gave you the idol and the other note, the congratulations note." So they go look for it, and they go back to where Daniel read the note. They find Daniel's water bottle that he left there, along with the idol. And then there's also the congratulations note that's missing, and that's down Daniel's pants. And he'd forgotten it was there. What?
My mom would have said, if you didn't have a head attached to you, you would lose it.
Yes.
If Daniel's head was not attached, he would clearly lose it. And it's hilarious watching him be neurotic about it. And it's also hilarious watching Mike realize that he probably shouldn't have given everything to Daniel. But at the same time, Daniel, come on, dude. Oh, my goodness.
My winner pick, everybody.
Ryan, how you feeling about that?
Not great, Bob.
10 minutes into the episode, how you feeling about that?
Not great. And boy, oh boy, is it going to go downhill.
Oh,
this was the highlight of the episode for Daniel.
It doesn't get much better.
At the immunity challenge, Marianne does end up saying her Beware advantage phrase, which is something about a rabbit in a mailbox.
Yeah, the old story about the rabbit in the mailbox.
I feel like Marianne's the only person on the season who can get away with saying that.
Marianne can get away with saying anything without hurting her spot in the game, but that's because I think she's done as much damage as she can do to herself with her words in the game.
Damage, I would say it's establishing character.
Understood. So nothing is out of the realm of possibility.
Yes. Mike does not say his because no one on Ika says it. Because no one on Ika says anything in this episode. They didn't appear in this episode. It's kind of weird.
Ika tribe is John Cena. Did you see them?
The challenge gets insane because the tide comes in, and so the waves, the swells are just massive. And obviously when they tested this challenge, that wasn't the case. So it was just like a bad luck that the waves were so big when they were. Taku wins by about 7 miles because they have Jonathan.
I think that Ika and Vati would still be out there today.
Oh, yeah.
If not for Jeff calling the challenge.
Yep. Or calling that section of the challenge.
Or just, all right, you guys are tied. Let's fast forward.
High tide. So the part of the challenge is they have to get this heavy ladder off the ocean floor, bring it over to a tower. 3 of the members got to hold it in place while the 4th person climbs up to get a key. Jonathan can hold up this ladder by himself. He doesn't need anyone else's help. So they get the key and finish the challenge like nothing.
Well, yeah, hold on though, because Jonathan unties the ladder, brings the ladder to the post,
Which is heavy,
goes back and pulls 2 of his 3 tribe members to the post, holds up the ladder, drags everyone in, and then tosses the sandbags on the pedestals, all on his own.
The only way this would be more impressive if, like last season, if he had a Deshaun on his tribe trying to sabotage him. That's the only way this could get any more impressive. This is amazing from Jonathan. He's going to make such a great merch boot.
I love it. And we had a small comment from a friend of the podcast on Twitter, Mr. Jay Snide, saying the only explanation is that Jonathan is actually Aquaman. And I can see the resemblance to Jason Momoa.
Yeah, for sure.
I hope that means that Amber Heard is not also on that tribe. And based on how everyone was swimming, Amber Heard was not on that tribe.
So Taku wins. And this attempt to get the key from this pole in the water goes on for so long that Jeff just calls this portion of the challenge. The waves are getting worse. The people are getting more tired. They're not going to get it. So they have to be like, you know what? We'll just skip the next part.
We had some mid-challenge nerfing. Maybe Derek 5 years ago would have been like, nah, leave him out there until they get it done. But I genuinely believe that both of those tribes ended up way more exhausted than Taku, just sitting out there and battling the ocean for as long as they did.
The point was made. It depleted their physical resources. Like the punishment for not doing well at that point, there was a punishment.
Yeah.
On an already tough season.
Yeah.
So they are given the keys by production and they can just move on to the rest of the challenge. And it's really, 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 really close. But eventually, Eco wins immunity.
Yeah, shout out to the beefy Mohawk man on the production team.
Yeah.
I don't know who I was expecting to go out there and get the key.
Jeff?
But that would have been cool.
I would have loved to see Jeff go get the keys.
Now, Jeff with a Mohawk go get the keys, even better.
If we wanted to improve Jeff Probst, there's a lot of ways to do it. And Mohawk would be a good one.
Giving him a Mohawk would be a nice, simple way to do it. I agree.
So Taku gets to choose someone from Vati to go on a journey to a Mystery Adventure Island. They're going to choose Chanel. Then they get to send a second person. It can be someone from Ika or their own tribe, and Omar decides to go. I'm not too upset with Omar going on this trek because he's in such a good spot on his tribe. So, normally I'm like, I'm not thrilled about it, but I'm less mad than usual with Omar making that call.
I'm actually not mad at him at all. I think it's different when you're on day one
Yeah.
and there's been no tribal lines drawn. There have, in fact, been tribal lines drawn. Omar knows that he's in a good spot with Jonathan and with Lindsay. They know that Marianne is the next boot if it came to pass. They know the stakes, that it's a decision to be made. So, because Marianne spilled the beans, so they know that it's going to be a risk your vote, protect your vote, or it's highly likely to be. And he knows if he loses his vote, that's fine. It's almost no risk, and it keeps the other tribe from possibly ending up with an advantage.
Yep.
So for Omar, I get it. Who they pick from one of the other tribes, I think, is maybe more interesting. You have to think that they pick someone that they either wanted to go home or somebody that they wanted to save. Really no middle ground.
Yeah. Chanel's an odd pick. Because
it couldn't be Jenny.
I'd say, you might want to go for their strongest person, just to put maybe an extra target on the back. Maybe Mike would have been a good pick. Yeah, odd pick. I would wonder what the rationale is behind it.
I'd be curious to know the rationale, but I wouldn't hold it against him either way.
No.
So I just wanted to bring it up and see if you had thoughts.
So Vati's going to tribal council. Chanel's off on her quest. Mike and Jenny, they want to take out Lydia. Hi and Lydia, they want to take out Jenny. And Daniel's kind of the swing vote, but he is with Mike and Jenny. He tells us that.
And for the record, Daniel and Chanel are also considered a voting block. They are a group of 2.
Yep.
So it seems like the groupings of 2 that we were fed on episode 1 that were kind of dissolved by the end of episode 1 were in fact the groups of 2.
Yes.
So this did come back, and we do now have, I guess, a couple distinct lines of where this could go.
But Daniel and Chanel are with Mike and Jenny, is what we do learn.
Yeah, there's three groups of 2, but there's a group of 4 and a group of 2.
So the plan is Mike doesn't have a vote, so it's going to be 3 votes for Lydia, and then Hai and Lydia will vote for Jenny.
Yep.
What could go wrong? It's a perfect plan.
What could possibly go wrong?
So on this Mystery Adventure Island trek, Chanel tells Omar, like, hey, I can't lose my vote for tonight. I need to have my vote tonight. It's really important. Yes. Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. It's very important. Do the math. Chanel has all the information. She knows that Mike can't vote.
Yep.
She knows.
It's the risk your vote, protect your vote thing. Omar, sound logic, decides to risk his vote because Chanel can't. She needs her vote. Why would she choose to risk her vote?
And we don't know if Chanel spilled any sort of information to Omar about, maybe Mike doesn't have a vote. I'm going to assume that she kept that to herself. Regardless, Omar should, his logic is fine.
Yep.
Risk your vote because you can afford to not have your vote because Marianne has no teeth and she's next. And Chanel has every reason to save herself tonight.
Chanel chooses to risk her vote. And this is what kicks everything off. This is such a bad move. She knows the situation. She knows she needs her vote. This is not the time to be risking your vote. An extra vote is not that great. Like, it's better than not having one, but it's better than all just having one vote when you really need it.
I don't have a running list of dumbest moves in Survivor history. I've got some that are way up there at the top. I don't think that this one is near enough to the end of the game.
No.
To call it one of the dumbest of all time. But, I mean, I think that this is one of those inflection points. Like, if Marvel were doing a what-if episode, Chanel protects her vote. And I have no idea what this season looks like. And I want to revisit this in the finale for just a second, depending on how this all shakes out. What if Chanel protects her vote?
Lydia goes home tonight, and Vati is mostly a happy family besides Hai.
Right.
Very boring episode, probably. So I'm glad this happened.
Yeah, sound gameplay, but we wouldn't have nearly as many actual, in practice, horrible decisions to talk about.
This is so bad. Like, everyone talks about, like, oh, I'd rather, go for the big move and go out guns blazing than, not make the big move and just, like, get voted out. It's like, how about you make the smartest move you possibly can? How about that?
There's an old thing in sports, and I feel like I've heard this mostly in reference to, like, basketball, but it's any sport. If you play smart and you do the fundamentals well, you don't need to play hero ball.
Yep. And Chanel didn't.
And Chanel did not do the smart thing, and so she's going to try and play hero ball when she arrives back on this beach.
It's so bad. It's so bad. So both she and Omar lose their votes. And I'm not going to hold it against Omar because he made a sound move. Someone else screwed him over.
So you can't defend. All you can do is anticipate idiocy. You can't really defend against it. Yeah, he could have protected his vote, but I mean, it was so balanced in his favor or imbalanced in his favor. He should have absolutely risked it. I would have.
Yep. Yeah.
I would have.
I think I would have too. And I'm usually pretty anti-risking your vote, but Omar's had one of the best reasons to. Either you do it because, like, it just makes good, sound, logical sense, or you're desperate. Omar was the first one.
Yep.
Chanel, there was no reason to do this.
There was plenty of reasons not to do this. You had she had all the information. You had every reason not to do this.
So now there's only going to be 4 votes cast on Vati, which is hilarious. And I think production is just like, yes, it's working. But I think production loved this.
Oh, absolutely. They wanted this on 41. They did.
Yeah. So Chanel gets back to camp. She tells Dana, she's like, I might not have a vote. But she's got a way to save it. Like a decent plan. She wants to trick Hai and Lydia into splitting the votes and be like, hey, how about the girls vote for Jenny, the guys vote for Mike? So they're pitching like what would end up being a 2-2-1. And then they can, send Jenny out of the game. But in actuality, Hai and Lydia would be splitting their votes. And then it ended up being a 2-1-1, knocking Lydia out of the game. So that's what is supposed to happen. Chanel pitches this to Hai. And Hai's like, seems a little sus.
Yeah, this is the hero ball play.
Yep.
And when you're playing hero ball, the other team can usually figure it out. Oh, this is what we're relying on.
Because Chanel is usually, I guess, pretty chill. And now she's a little more high-strung.
Now, so Hai said that, but Vati hasn't been to tribal council yet. Mm-hmm. So in fairness, nobody knows what any of these people are like during the scramble. And we've always heard that the scramble is so different from the rest of the game for even savvy players, because that's when everything turns on. They haven't had their lines tested. They're solidifying things. They're making their plans. They're crunching the numbers. They're trying to figure it all out. So I know that's a part of the edit, so we have to, say that it's true, but I don't want to hold that too much against Chanel for actually turning on the strategic side during their first tribe scramble.
I just think the truly great players, and Chanel hasn't been in tribal council yet. Maybe give her time. The truly great players can keep that the same, that energy level the same, the whole. And if you can do that, you'll seem more trustworthy.
Oh, I 100% agree. I'm just saying I don't buy into High's hype about Chanel being too erratic too much, just because I think you have to be a little different, maybe a little bit more intentional.
And, it could go either way for sure. I'll give him the credit just because that's what we're given.
Yep.
But it could definitely be a case of it's just like, she's just stressed about tribal council and would have done this no matter what.
It is interesting, though, if she is acting that way and her name never even came up, that's where I would be a little bit more suspicious.
I'm excited to see what Chanel does when her name does come up. Could be really fun.
Burn the rice. Wait. Burn the ocean.
Burn the ocean. So during tribal council, Daniel kind of talks about his paranoia. And they bring up, who calms you down? And Daniel says Chanel, his closest ally, fair, and Mike. And I think this triggers some warning signs for High. Oh, really? Then why do you want to turn on Mike and Jenny, Daniel? That's suspicious.
Yeah, and this could have been a trick of the edit.
Could have been.
Just acknowledging it, but it seemed pretty smooth. Mike calms me down. Chanel calms me down. My mom calls me down. So it moved right into game players to not game players. So either Survivor editors, really good job, or Daniel, man, you really messed up. And I don't know if I have any more leeway to give Daniel this episode.
Could be both. I'm not going to give Daniel the benefit of the doubt after this episode.
Absolutely not.
And then during tribal council, Chanel mouths Lydia to Daniel. Maybe just to make sure, just check in, because that was their plan. Those two were going to vote Lydia.
Yeah, and we do have a Twitter question that came in that was of relation to the mouthing of Lydia to Daniel. And I think that this might be getting at the Daniel will end up throwing Chanel under the bus a little bit. Mm-hmm. Was he justified in doing so? And maybe we can get to that point before we talk about it, but I don't think that he was, because I think the plan all along for everyone in the know was for a 2-1-1 split. So Daniel should have already known his assignment was to vote for Lydia the whole time. So I don't think mouthing Lydia at Tribal is too big of a sin for Chanel at this point.
I'm going to say it is, just because unless things are getting crazy and you need to change the plan, you shouldn't mouth anything at Tribal Council. Maybe a look or a nod, but unless there was something we didn't see, I don't think there was any reason for just Chanel to say that, because if that was the plan, you don't need to say anything. Lock it in, and because you doing stuff at tribal council draws attention,
and maybe Daniel's neuroticism, paranoia is getting to Chanel, and she's just reassuring, "Hey, do the thing."
And High notices this, so that's not great. So I don't know if he had planned on doing this coming into tribal council or what. We don't know. But High's going to end up not doing the split vote plan because he was supposed to vote for Mike, and he's going to throw his vote on Jenny. We're going to get 2 votes for Jenny, 2 votes for Lydia. It's a tie.
And I like this move for High anyway, because stick with your closest person and vote as a block. Splitting it men on one side and women on the other when it's a 4-person split vote against another 2. And if it's that obvious that it's 2 pairs of 2, vote with your 1. And if someone's trying to divide you up, you got to be able to, smell something a little off.
The person who suggests how the vote should be split, really think about their motivation, how that would benefit them. So whoever suggests who votes by who, think about that a lot. That's huge.
It feels similar to Amanda telling Parvati to play the idol on herself in Heroes vs. Villains, or Ricard telling Xander to play the idol on himself here in season 41 more recently. If someone really wants you to do something,
think about why.
Just question the motivations.
Motivation is huge. We're going to get the revote. 1 vote for Jenny, 1 vote for Lydia. We're deadlocked.
And High is confused.
High is so confused. He's like, where are the votes? He looks like he's going to cry. I feel so bad for High in this episode.
There are 6 of us. I don't get it. And he doesn't even realize it, but it's actually really good for him.
Yeah.
Why are there no votes? You should be like, oh, why are there no votes?
I'm fine with this. So now we go to the phase where it's got to be a discussion and a unanimous decision on who goes out of the game. But it turns out that unanimous decision only applies to people who got to vote. So while Mike and Chanel can participate in the discussion, they ultimately have no say. It all comes down to Daniel or High have to agree on if it's going to be Jenny or Lydia. If they don't, High, Daniel, Mike, and Chanel will all draw rocks to see who goes home. So that's the stakes. Jeff does reveal, or he's like, all right, well, because of all of this no voting stuff going on with the people who didn't vote, please reveal themselves. And you don't like this.
I don't. And, Ryan and I had a very spirited discussion about this during commercial break, because I don't like that Jeff stepped in and made the people with no votes fess up to not having any votes. Because if the decision needs to be unanimous, in my head, all 4 people need to agree, which within that 4 is Daniel and Hai needing to agree. So I think that if Hai had played a better social game, he would have access to the information that Mike has no vote, and there was a possibility that Chanel had no vote, which he should have known anyway. He probably figured Chanel immediately. He probably thought Jenny was the other one at first, because they both been the Super Mystery Adventure Island. Daniel was privy to that information because of his social game.
Sure.
And you know what? Hai might have been able to deduce this on his own quickly enough. I just don't like that Jeff stepped in and said, raise your hand if you don't have a vote. It's a little thing. I'm not going to die on any of these hills, but I think less production interference, the better, and Jeff did not need to make them fess up.
I prefer when the contestants know the rules of what the game is. So, you can call production stepping in. I prefer to think of it as someone who the host of game night is explaining the rules so to make sure everyone's on the same page. Production interference, that's not really how I see it. I just think it's like, clarification of the rules. And the people who are, unanimous implies everyone's involved. But it's unanimous of everyone who voted, and that's much more specific. And both Hai and Daniel deserve to know that they're the only ones with the power. So I have not only no problem with this, I'm in favor of this, and I'll take more of this. I would rather have more explanation of twists and rules for the players, because I like it more when the players understand the game they're playing. I don't love it when the players just wander around in the dark.
And this is also a function of too many twists and too many different mechanics, cross-wiring and everything like that. I think that Jeff should have said, all 4 of you are eligible for rocks. And that is what would have been ideal for me. I'm not mad that it happened the way that it happened. I'm just a little bit irritated that Daniel's not given a little bit more credit for his social game up to that point and being in the know with the right people. But like I said, I'm not going to fight with you on it. I get where you're coming from, where a host needs to make sure that a game is playing as soundly as possible.
He's more than a host. He's a referee.
Yes, he is. And referees are, in fact, a part of the game. So if Jeff does it, I guess it kind of canonizes it and makes it okay. But they have made mistakes in the past. You go back and you apply the rules immediately, and it's like, okay, that was weird. Like the time that Ben played the idol before the votes were cast.
Yep.
That's not something that anyone, even I'm pretty sure Jeff, agrees should have been allowed. But it happened. We move on.
Yep.
If you lose because of that one play,
odds are it wasn't you lost because of that one play.
Yes.
So during this discussion, Daniel immediately throws Chanel under the bus, saying it was all her idea to vote for Lydia.
Where did this come from, Daniel? And so the big nuclear meltdown begins.
And it's really a big fight between Daniel and Chanel, both of them accusing the other of basically being a liar. And Hai just kind of gets to sit there and watch the tribe melt down. And eventually he's just be like, you know what? I'm not changing my vote. Do what you want. I'll go to rocks. And for Hai, who's in a terrible spot now and knows it, this is 100% the right move. You lock that in and make them make a decision and melt down.
Ryan, would you say this is the first time that you have ever gone and said, this person should go to rocks in the pre-merge?
I think I've said that once. I'd have to go back and listen to it and try a review. But I feel like I've said, they probably should have gone to rocks here before.
Because I know that I'm usually someone who's very liberal, fine, I'll go to rocks. I've got 17% chance of going home and therefore 83% chance of having the numbers.
If you're in a bad spot and you're going next, maybe, you go to rocks. It's fine.
One thing that is consistent, though, is we always say the team that is more solid, more unified, is the one that comes out on top.
Hai and Lydia.
It usually isn't a 4-2 split where that works. But my goodness, Daniel, the most paranoid one in the group, is the only one with his vote left.
So it's all up to Daniel. Daniel gets to decide, does Jenny go home or do they go to rocks?
And what was interesting was Daniel opened this by saying, I don't want to go to rocks. He basically said, I will not go to rocks. I think that gives Hai the upper hand.
Totally. You don't want to be the first person to say that. If you're going to say anything, say you're not going to rocks, because then it makes the other person panic. And we'll do what you want.
Yeah.
So Daniel played this all wrong.
Because now he's got Chanel who's mad at him. And by the way, I don't like that Chanel wasn't putting a foot forward in the conversation. Daniel should not have looked at Chanel and said, who do you want me to go home because this was all you? And Chanel should not have said, what are you talking about? You're the only one who has to make this decision. I don't want any of the bad juju that comes with you making this decision.
Chanel wanted to have her cake and eat it too.
Well, that's why she doesn't have a vote.
She doesn't have a vote, but she does get input of this conversation, and she didn't want to give any. It's like, you kind of need to.
And meanwhile, Daniel wanted to have his cake, but he didn't really want to eat it.
Yeah.
So it's really bad on both of them.
Yep.
But if we're just containing tribal within tribal, Daniel was far more in the wrong.
Yes.
Chanel just should have given her honest opinion. I think that we should go to rocks and try and keep our numbers. I think that you should switch and we can worry about damage control tomorrow. Just give your opinion.
Yep.
Just give it. You are a part of the conversation.
Think about what benefits you the most and put that into the sphere.
Yeah.
So Daniel asked Hai and Lydia, do you guys promise not to hold this against me? And of course they say, yeah, of course.
Yeah, good lip service.
Good lip service. Hold this against him. Hold this against him. If that means knocking him out next, you do that.
Yes.
Which we'll talk about on who's going next. We'll get to that. But ultimately, Daniel does change his vote to Jenny. So Jenny, no fault of her own, gets voted out of the game.
We sort of, as a consensus, predicted. I did not. I thought Hai might be the next one to go based on him kind of putting himself on the outs with the chicken thing and being a vegan. But after episode 1, you and Josh said, I think Jenny might be the next to go. Now, you were 100% wrong about how those blocks were were falling, but you were 100% right about the result. So congratulations. If you're taking a math test and it's multiple choice, you get half a point for getting the right answer, but no points for showing your work.
Yeah, we got the work all wrong. We just fell ass backwards into the right answer. So Jenny goes out of the game, and this is normally when we say, did the right person go home here? And how did we get here? Because the answer is no.
The answer is no. And I think in order to explain why, we need to come up with, or we need to share how we feel Daniel switching his vote to Jenny is. I think that's the wrong move.
Yeah.
And I was very quick to say this. I shouldn't say I was quick. I was the first one to say this when the episode was kind of done or we were in that commercial break. Hi, we agreed. Good move.
Yep.
Be willing to go to rocks. 25% chance you go home and, you can keep your ally in the game. Great. I love it. For Daniel, based on what he did, which was burn every single bridge that he had and then switch his vote, that's the worst of all possible scenarios. Troy got back to the apartment and everything was on fire. I think that Daniel should have gone to rocks because you know what? Mike, he opened a beware advantage. It said, buyers beware. He lost his vote. He has no say in what happens to his alliance now because of that. Chanel risked her vote when she knew darn well that she should not have done that.
Yep.
She has now made her bed. She needs to lie in it. Daniel, if you don't go to rocks and take your 25% chance to go home, you might end up burning a ton of bridges with your only alliance.
And I think he did. I think he burned every bridge tonight.
And I think that even if he switches his vote without all of the malice towards, you're going to lose Mike for sure.
Yep.
And then, Mike defects to Lydia and Hai, and who knows, you and Chanel are on the chops anyway.
All right, so let's break this down on every way this could have gone better. Starting with Chanel not risking her vote. Lydia goes home, we're fine.
Yes.
Okay, next, Tribal Council. Obviously they could have done a better job at convincing Hai to swap and not screwed up at Tribal Council. Boom, the vote is split, Lydia's out of the game again. Okay, you screwed that up too. All right, so now we have the revote, where Daniel could switch his vote. Not great if Daniel does switch his vote, but he probably, he will lose Mike as an ally because he betrayed Mike and Jenny by voting Jenny out. But he probably keeps Chanel as an ally, and that's at least one. Doing what Daniel ultimately does with the final decision, whether to go to rocks or not, going to rocks ensures that he keeps. So let's go talk about who goes home. If Hai goes home, that's best case scenario. You're up 4-1. If Daniel goes home, obviously worst case scenario.
Yep.
You're out of the game. But
25% chance of that happening.
if Mike or Chanel go home, that sucks. You lose an ally, but you still have the majority.
Yes. And that's why I think 75% chance to end up in the majority, 25% chance to end up in a super majority, 25% chance to go home. You go with that because that's, 25% chance to end your game, but 100% chance if you switch your vote to blow up your entire position in the pre-merge. The only thing Daniel can hope for now is a complete swap.
Yep.
And he somehow eliminates everyone who knows that he's been a snake before they end up on a jury. And those odds, much less than 75%.
I would say impossible. I think it's impossible to eliminate everyone. He would have to lose every single member of his tribe. That's not going to happen.
And even getting it down to 1 or 2 at this point, that's so hard.
So the worst case scenario happened for Daniel. So to answer the question, who should have gone home?
The answer is rocks.
The last step in this equation is rocks. But the truth of the matter is, we should never have been here. There was multiple possible divergences along the way, and we chose the worst path every single time, and we're here. We shouldn't be here, but since we got here, it should have been rocks.
And regardless, did the right person go home then? No.
Because
Lydia should have gone home, and Jenny shouldn't have gone home because they should have gone to rocks, so Jenny should have been safe. So no matter how you slice it, the wrong person for game logic, game theory, and social game went home tonight.
Literally the worst person to go home in terms of logic went home.
Yeah, pretty much.
Jenny should have been the last person to go home.
Yeah, because Jenny didn't even lose her vote.
Yep. It's a shame. I really like Jenny. It's a bummer. We should not be here, but we're here. It was a fun episode, though.
Hashtag justice for Jenny.
Justice for Jenny.
Bring her back on the most screwed Survivor players and put her on the list of most screwed Survivor players of all time.
Yeah, we should honestly write that down. We'll do a cast of 20, the most screwed Survivor. Survivor. Screwed. We'll workshop the title, Survivor 43, and we'll get 20 people who are just utterly screwed by Twiz to come back on.
Up a creek. Survivor up a creek.
Yeah, Survivor up a creek. Creek versus paddle. Survivor Schitt's Creek.
Now there's a crossover show I would watch.
Yes.
David, where are my swim trunks, David?
So let's go to Twitter. This is normally Josh's job, but he's not here. What did Twitter think about who should have gone home?
They agreed with us. I mean, they had 30% saying yes, 70% saying no. I don't really understand how you can wind up at yes, other than being a massive fan of Lydia and Hai, of which, Lydia is hilarious on Twitter. So yes. I get it.
Haven't seen much of it on camera yet, but
I mean, if we're asking the audience and who wants to be a millionaire, I think we got to the right answer here.
All right, let's get into best and worst player of the episode, huh?
Oh boy.
I'll go first. I'll do best player. My best player is Hai, almost by default, because everyone sucked so hard. But what I liked about Hai is, how much credit we want to give him is up for debate. But, based on what we were seeing, he did see through Chanel's lie and did see through the shenanigans of Tribal Council, which got him to not split his vote and gave him a chance to, put him in a position to save himself and Lydia. And he refused to flip on Lydia, which was 100% the right move for him. So I'm going to give it to Hai.
I love it. Everything you said, and it's a lot of stuff with game repercussions. I want to give an honorable mention to Jonathan in case we forgot that he was actually Aquaman, and he didn't need to have the challenge nerfed for him to drag his entire team across the finish line. Just happy honorable mention, but based on the game alone, whenever you have a 2 to 4 disadvantage and somehow come out on top, congrats, man.
You and your allies survived, and you set fire to the other 3. Good job.
Absolutely. So it's Hai.
Derek, who do you got for worst player?
Worst. So, Ryan, this is so hard.
We got 2.
Because there are 2, and hilariously enough, I'm pretty sure one of them is your winner pick, and I'm pretty sure the other one is my winner pick.
High five!
Hey! So, I always like to try and trace a problem back to its origin, and that's Chanel. I mean, say what you want about how poorly Daniel handled the really awkward and horrible social situation at Tribal. And he did not need to throw Chanel under the bus, which I think is the worst thing that he did, because now he's burned every single bridge in a horrible, horrible situation. I get it. And at least I can see him going back to Tribal and saying to Mike, I wanted to save Jenny, but you lost your vote and there was nothing I could do. I'm not tanking my chance at $1 million for you and Jenny. There's something there, but he managed to make everybody angry. You can still trace this all the way back to Chanel she knew that Mike did not have his vote. So she knew there were only 5 votes in play. And if she had given it any forethought, and I'm sure she did, she knew that they would have been going for Lydia because they would have talked about it. Even if they're going for Hai, you need 3 votes to make that work. You could have protected it. You said as much, and then did exactly the opposite in some kind of weird reverse psychology, 5D level weird checkers game that you're trying to play, and caused this whole thing to explode. Especially if you already knew that Daniel was scatterbrained and paranoid, and losing your vote would set him off a cliff. That's just as bad on you. Chanel is the worst. Big dishonorable mention to Daniel for every which way of mishandling Tribal, but this is Chanel's fault, and I can't give her any leeway or flexibility.
I'll say this. Chanel jumped out of the plane and pulled Daniel with her Daniel had a parachute, but decided to take it off while he was falling for some reason. So on my worst player is Daniel with a big dishonorable mention to Chanel. Yeah, this is all Chanel's fault. Daniel just like made the problem so much worse. Not even relevant, but still I want to talk about it. He lost Mike's idol for a little bit by just being scatterbrained. That is not a good alliance partner to have, someone who just leaves your idol hanging around. Came off as untrustworthy. He talked too much to tribal council. He turned on Chanel when he didn't have to. He failed to get high to flip, and he flipped on Jenny instead of going to Rocks. So I'm going to give it to, we're both giving it to our own winner picks, and maybe that says something, so we'll need Josh to break the tie, but I'm giving it to Daniel.
No, I'm the real Dirty Dan.
Yeah.
You can be Dirty Dan, and mine will be Pinhead Larry.
Yeah. So once Josh watches the episode, we'll have him tweet out his best and worst and all that stuff. So Josh will have to break the tie on this one for worst player. Let's get into who's going next. I'll start on the Ika tribe. We didn't see them at all, so I'll just stand pat. Roxroy is going next.
I'll agree with that based on the next time on Survivor.
Yeah. Derek, why don't you take us over to Taku?
On the Taku tribe, again, I'm just going to stand pat. I'm going to say that Marianne is next.
Yeah, I agree. And then Vati, which is where things get really interesting. I'm just going to go ahead and say Daniel, just because everyone's got a bone to pick with him. I could totally see the other four being, let's just get rid of Daniel. Okay.
I can see it, but I also think that Lydia and Hai will keep Daniel around to keep up appearances. And plus, they know that they have Daniel kind of goated at this point. Like, if you take Daniel to the end, they can beat him.
Yeah.
I think Chanel goes next.
I could totally see that.
Daniel's former number one. And, you keep Mike around because he's toothless.
Yep.
And he's looking for somewhere to go. So I think Chanel's the next to go.
Those are the two. I think Daniel and Chanel are the two. I think that are going.
And deservingly so.
Deservingly so. This is one of those times where I wish we could give out two worst players of the episode, but we can't. But if we could, we would. You
remember how I gave only one like the other week? I've been reserving that for tonight. Okay. So
you're banking them.
Yeah. What is that? The weakest link where you get to bank? I banked it, and this was the weakest link. Goodbye.
Derek, who can no longer win this game? Who's the one person who can win this game?
After tonight, I mean, our reasons for Roxroy were solid. Our reasons for Marianne were solid at the time. But, where the rubber meets the road, I think that Daniel actually can't win. I think that there are too many people left in the game that are going to end up on the jury that can sour everyone's opinion of his pre-merge game. Even if he can still win, he has the toughest road of everyone by far.
I'm going to stick with Roxroy just because if I'm comparing the two of them head to head, I think Daniel has a better chance of improving his game and fixing it going forward as opposed to Roxroy, who I don't think has that gear.
And that is totally fair. I'm not going to knock you for that thought.
So I'm going to keep it on Roxroy, but Daniel is a close second. Well, that pretty much wraps up this episode, but we did want to talk about, we got a DM this week that we really appreciated. Darren, when you read that out loud.
Yeah, we had a DM from Carol in Portugal. And she said, "This is not a question, but I just wanted to say that when I first started watching Survivor about a year ago, that this podcast was the first one that she found and she binged it all. Keep up the great work because she will definitely keep listening." Thank you so much. You are pretty much our entire European audience. So tell one friend about us and you will double our European audience.
That's a lot of power.
That's a lot of power. So thank you so much, Carol. We really appreciate it, and we love to hear it.
Yeah, that's why we do it. We love to hear that, and we really appreciate that.
We want to be your friend who loves Survivor as much as you do, and for everyone who's been interacting with us on a weekly basis, thank you. Keep asking us questions, either in a tweet or in a DM, and we will address them. Hopefully we got through all of them tonight. I believe that in one way or another we have, and that's despite Josh being our official Twitter manager guy.
Look at him. We're picking up all the slack for him.
Yeah, he's at that Reginald concert, whoever that guy is. Reginald Dwight.
And on that note, you can follow us on Twitter at Castaway Pod. You can give us 5-star reviews on your podcast listener choice. We really appreciate it. We love 5 stars. It's our favorite number.
Absolutely. And we also have our TikTok that you can go check out and our Instagram. We've started to post our weekly rank downs, our power rankings of who we believe is most likely and least likely to go home.
Yep.
This last graphic had a mistake because I said Mariah was 15 and Ryan said Mariah was 10th. So we'll get that switched
First
up.
Time.
And by the way, Lindsay, we spelled your name with an E because I love Lindsay Sterling. I apologize for that. We will get the A in there. We will get it right. It's just the three of us, and this is just a really fun hobby. So
yes, we don't get paid to do this yet. You can help us change that, though. We deserve money. All right, Derek, anything else?
I got nothing. I'm excited to see where Vati goes from here, though.
Oh, it's going to be insane. All right, this has been the Castaway Consultants.
Got nothing else for you.
Good night.